Hello all, this is Jawad Qazi and you are watching my weekly video series 321 Thursdays. Every week I bring before you value addition content for UPSC answers and essays. Today once again I bring before you 3 data points, 2 case laws and 1 framework regarding effective policing. So let's get started. In the first segment, I will be sharing 3 data points regarding police to population ratio. Having sufficient number of police personnel is very crucial for effective discharge of policing functions. Let us see how India fares on this account, what the United Nations recommend, and what is the world average regarding police to population ratio. If you see guys, India's police to population ratio stands at 144 for every 1 lakh citizens. So, we are standing at 144 to every 1 lakh citizens. Now, this is the national average. But in some states, like say for example UP and Bihar, the number is even less than 100. So, some of the states are performing way poorer than the national average. United Nations guys recommends that there should be at least 222 police personnel for every 1 lakh people. So our national average is way less than what United Nations recommends. This is also on account of large number of vacancies. Actually, only 77% of our sanctioned police strength is currently occupied, remaining is vacant. If all the vacancies were filled, then our police to population ratio would be in the range of 185 for every 1 lakh population. Now, even then, our figures are worse than what the United Nations recommends. These numbers seem even more poor when we see the world average. The world average of police to population ratio stands at 350 for 1 lakh population. So these were the points guys regarding the police to population ratio. We must also remember that the representation of women in our police force is very poor. Less than 7% of our police personnel come from the second gender. Now, with increasing violence against women and different types of crimes, it is very crucial that we have a gender sensitive police force, and hence a representation for women needs to be increased. This concludes our first segment, and now let us go to the second segment. The second segment will be 2 important case laws regarding the police system. The first case law is the famous Prakash Singh case. In 2006, Supreme Court of India gave 7 directives regarding police reforms. These directives are very crucial to ensure police reforms in the country. When we talk about police reforms, guys, remember 2 A's, okay? This is what the police reforms revolve around. The first A is autonomy. The autonomy of police must be increased. And the second A is accountability, okay? Once we give them the autonomy, make them free from political interference, then after that, we have to make them accountable to departmental, legal, as well as democratic frameworks. So when we ensure these 2 A's, autonomy and accountability, then we can say that police reforms are being implemented. And Supreme Court gives 7 directives in this context. The first directive, Supreme Court directed the states that every state must have a state security commission who will insulate the police from political interference. That's the first directive. Second, Supreme Court directed the states to appoint Director Generals of Police, DGPs, on the basis of merit only and give them a fixed tenure of at least 2 years. So the post of DGP must be filled only on the basis of merit and must have a fixed tenure. That was the second directive. Then the Supreme Court directed the states to give fixed tenures to other operational posts in the policing system. So posts like Superintendent of Police or SHO, who's the in charge of the police station, they too must have a fixed tenure. So these people will not be at the whims and fancies of the political establishment. This is the third directive. The fourth directive is to separate law and order from investigation. Several committees and commissions, including the second ARC, also has recommended to separate investigation and law and order, as these are two very different kind of functions and require some special skills. Again, a very important recommendation. Fifth, Supreme Court directed the states to establish a police establishment board. This would be like an HR department for the police, especially for the ranks of DYSP and downwards. For the post above DYSP, they will be able to give the recommendations, but their decisions will not be final. So appointments, transfers, postings, appraisals, all of these will be dealt by the establishment board. Then the Supreme Court directed to establish a police complaints authority at state and district level. Remember, we want to make the police not only autonomous but also accountable. And for that reason, we must have a complaints authority where citizens can approach with their complaints. Lastly, the Supreme Court directed that at national level, we need to have a National Security Commission on the lines of the State Security Commission. This commission will deal with Central Police Organizations, CPOs. So guys, these are the very important 7 recommendations or directives rather that were given by the Supreme Court in Prakash Singh case. Now let us see the second case law. The second case law is the famous D.K. Basu case. In D.K. Basu case, which was a public interest litigation, the Supreme Court over several judgments has given some important directives to the police to ensure that custodial torture and deaths do not take place. If these directives of the Supreme Court, which are mandatory, are implemented, then surely the nuisance or menace of custodial torture and deaths can be substantially reduced in India. A few of these directives I'm sharing here. Number 1, whenever the police do some arrests, their name tags and their overall identification must always be carried with them. At the time of arrest, the family member of that person must sign an attestation that the person is being arrested at so-and-so place at so-and-so time. If the family member is not available, then a respected person from the locality must attest to that arrest. Immediately, his family or friends must be informed if they have not been informed regarding the arrest. Also, a legal aid related NGO, whichever is closest from the place of arrest, must be informed about the arrest of so-and-so person. The arrested person must be informed about the principles of the D.K. Basu case. He must be told what are his rights. The arrest memo must be prepared, which will contain all the details regarding the arrest. Medical examination must be done periodically of the person to ensure that he is not being physically tortured in the police custody. And there are such several recommendations that have been given in the D.K. Basu case. If these directives are followed, then surely the custodial torture or deaths in India can be substantially reduced. This issue has been in news recently because of the episode in Tamil Nadu in Thoothukudi, or also certain you can say encounters which have been debated. So this was the D.K. Basu case. Now guys, let us come to the last segment of today's session, which is the framework. In 2014, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had given the goal of Smart Police. S-M-A-R-T, SMART, is actually an acronym of the attributes that our police must have. So it's a good framework to actually remember the kind of police force we want to build in our country. So let us see what this SMART or SMART stands for. Number 1, the letter S has 2 qualities or attributes. Number 1 is sensitive. The police must be sensitive to vulnerable sections of the society. It is for them that the welfare state actually takes a lot of efforts. They must have the confidence to approach the police that their grievances will be redressed by them. And hence, that sensitivity must be there in police. The second attribute with letter S is strict. The police also have to be strict with those people who are in conflict with the law. There must be an element of fear or deterrence in the minds of such elements so that crime can be controlled in the country. Of course, that strictness has to be within the legal limitations on the police. So this is the first letter S. The second letter is M. M stands for, number one, mobile. The police force must be mobile so that they are able to respond to calls of distress. Citizens who are struck or who are stuck in different kind of situations, whether it is calamities, whether it is some kind of fear or insecurity, the police force must be able to reach them in time. And that is what we mean by a mobile police force. The second attribute with M is modern. Our police force needs to be modern, and that is at two levels. Modern in hardware, that is their equipments, their infrastructure has to be modern, and at the same time, regarding their values. The value system of the police must be progressive. It must be based on the ideals of our constitution. It must not be steeped in medievalism. That is what we mean by being modern. The third alphabet is A. And A here again stands for two attributes. The police need to be alert. They must be able to respond before any situation is created. The intelligence gathering mechanism and beat policing must be strengthened so that they are able to preempt any kind of nuisance. A also stands for accountable. The police must be accountable to departmental processes, to legal proceedings, and also in larger democratic framework. So that is A. The next letter is R. R again stands for two attributes. Number one is responsiveness. The police must have communications, technologies, logistical systems to actually immediately respond to people's needs. Police are often the first responders to any kind of crisis of the citizens, and therefore they must have sufficient capacity to deal or to be responsive. The second attribute with R is reliable. Their image and credibility in the people must be such that if they approach the police, their problems or their grievances will be solved. That is the reliability that must be built on using systems, procedures, and protocols. Then comes the last alphabet of SMART, which is T. T again stands for two attributes. Number one is tech savvy. World is evolving and technology is advancing at a galloping pace. Crime, similarly, is also advancing rapidly with evolving technology. And therefore, it is very important that police stay one step ahead of the criminals and they are even more tech savvy than them. So investment in right kind of technologies for investigation, for office management, or for law and order maintenance must be made. And lastly, T also stands for training. Training is a very, very important aspect of building up an efficient and effective human resource. Training in all of these attributes that we discussed is very crucial to build a smart police. Training must not be seen as just an extracurricular kind of an activity. It must be very central in the functioning of the organization. Training especially of the lower rungs of the policing system, the constabulary, the rank and file, must be prioritized so that they have all the attributes that we just discussed of SMART. So this is the framework, guys, SMART police, that our Prime Minister had recommended. Do let me know in the comment box below how you found today's session, and join me next week for another episode of 321 Thursdays. Thank you.
Subscribe the Unique Academy's YouTube channel and press the bell icon for latest updates and videos.